Hello, and welcome to the Creative Connection podcast. I am so glad that you are here. Apparently, my podcast from last week didn't post, so I will repost it today after I put this one up. So, June, it is June. It is right now the second week of June. We're looking at June 10th. Many years ago on this very day, I graduated from high school. So June 10th has always been a day of shifts and changes and things not remaining the same. And I noticed that as June approached for many of my friends, that was the case as well. Transitions, finishing a book, finishing a chapter is a part of life. Not every chapter, not every book, not every connection is meant to last forever. It took me many years, but I take many lessons from nature around this idea of, of shifting and transitioning and changing. Our seasons change. Now, in some parts of our country and world, they change more dramatically, but in other parts, like where I'm presently living, they don't change super dramatically, except for a small window of time between July 5th and Labor Day weekend. That is the most profound and distinct summer. It doesn't come on us quickly or slowly. It doesn't build up and then it's here, but it just happens. It's almost like it's overnight. Every year, gardens are replanted. And, I was looking out at a garden that I created in 2020 when we were all stuck at home. And the intention was that there were going to be, I planted a number of bulbs that I knew I would have to dig up every year and replace. However, I haven't touched them. And they have come back every year differently than the year before. So perhaps I have enough pollinators that have helped. As a theatrical director and actor, I know that plays close after their run. Those connections and that camaraderie that we've made during the run of that show is no more when the show closes. The same could be said for a movie set, although many of the movies nowadays, they're done in chunks and you're not all together in the same room. And the first time sometimes that they even see one another is at the premiere of that show, if there is a premiere, or a watch party, if it's a Netflix or a Amazon Prime. Even the most successful productions eventually have to be struck. The set goes away and we make room for something new. I want you to consider these things as I go through today's topic about when it's time to leave and recognizing the end of a chapter without burning bridges. I have found that the question for myself, anyways, is not often did I stay long enough, but am I still called to be here? Am I still called to be here? I was confronted with this yesterday in an organization that I have belonged to for 27 years. And in that 27 years, there have been growth and decline and growth and decline, and people have come and gone. And the last 7 or 8 years, there have been a lot of shifts and changes. And some of us handle shifts and changes well, and some of us do not. And I was confronted yesterday by a person that was challenging me on a use of a room, of all things. I belong to a philanthropic organization that needs a space for a meeting, and I offer up our space 4 times a year. And apparently, the message was not shared with this individual that they would need to move or shift their meeting space because of my use of the space. And he didn't like it. And he made a statement when he walked in the building that I could not use this room and space anymore. In a panic, I responded very emotionally with, but I have it on the schedule through next June. Well, you can't. And I made the statement to him again because I was at an emotional space and I was hurt. And I said, you know, I have been considering not retaining my membership here. And this might just be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And his response to me was very hurtful. I don't care. Now, he backpedaled about 30 minutes later and told me that he was sorry. He shouldn't have said that and he didn't mean it. But the problem is his words came out with a lot of venom and hurt. And he did mean it in that morning, in that moment. That is where today's topic came from. Is when is it time to leave? The whole reason that I came to this particular location was because I had met a couple of the people that belonged here in, I'm going to say, the very early 90s. And when we had the opportunity to move closer to it, I knew it was the space that was going to be our home. And of all things, it is our space for spiritual home. It is my church. So I got to thinking about recognizing the time that it may be a self-intentional shift or change. And I got to thinking about over the course of my work life and even to my heading toward being a coach, what were some of the signs that had me recognizing that it was the end of a chapter and I needed to move on, but I did not want to hurt any people or burn any bridges because you never know when you may needose people again. So with much reflection, I have come up with 4 signs that it may be time for you to shift, to change, or 4 signs that your season in a space or place or with a group or in a job or wherever you are, it may be time for a change. The first one is that you are carrying more than you are creating. This past May, as I was staging the play that I stage in this particular location, it got to feeling very heavy. And while with my actors, it felt like I was creating, but with the larger community, it felt more like I was maintaining or fixing or trying to figure out ways to survive. And I was spending less time. My creativity, my contribution, my vision. How can this help us grow and shift and change? A second sign is your growth has outpaced the organization. This is true. I have big ideals. I am a firm believer that stories and storytelling can help create impact and shift worldviews, shift perspectives. So when I joined this community in 1997, I could see how we could take this small fellowship group and grow it to be a community-based group that could be a spearhead for change, for justice, for peace, for education, for community. And I am not sure that the organization sees it like that. There have been times where people have said that it's a burr in someone's side. And I've come to realize that they are not wrong in their opinion. And I am not better for having my opinion. It just means that the fit, it's not like this anymore. It's more like this. And perhaps what I came to this space and place and time to learn, I have learned, and it's now time for me to take it out into the world and do something else with what I've learned. I also notice that when I am in that space and interacting with people, especially like yesterday when there is a tough interaction, my body started to tell me that it didn't necessarily feel safe anymore. I am a firm believer that your body knows before your mind knows. Your mind takes a while to catch up to what the signals are that your body are sending, what your divine essence and God may be helping you understand. In my memoir that comes out later this year, you will notice that things like exhaustion and dread and tightness and loss of enthusiasm were things that I recognized in myself when I realized that the career and job I was doing was not aligned with what my heart was calling me to do. And now I am faced again at another crossroads of, I know what my heart is calling me to do, but the space and place I am doing it in may not be the right space. I had a hard time sleeping last night because of my interactions yesterday. And I'm realizing that the cost of staying my health may exceed the cost of my leave. Now, I have not come to any decisions yet. I have more processing to do. But if I think back to the last job that I left, it was a job that I thought I would work until I retired. I began when I was, 2015. So what was that, 11 years ago? So I was 54 when I began that job. And I thought certain that I would stay in that job till I was 67 or 68. But I chose to leave. COVID happened. I was dealing with everyone else's problems. I didn't have a lot of space for caring for myself. I had some medical issues. I needed to have 2 hips replaced. I was a great employee until I began to ask for things. And I realized that if I continued to stay in that job, it would be a form of self abandonment. I would be shrinking back into that corporate Cyndi that she had struggled to shake off many years before. And as I was learning about myself and how to do self-compassion and self-care and have loving kindness towards myself and others, and how much that was needed in the world, I realized that really what I wanted to do was take my desire and love of storytelling and help people create their own story of life, to create a life that they are passionate about living. So when I realized that by retaining or staying in that position that I thought I was going to be in until I retired, that I was going to be compromising my core values. And that while I may have had both my hips replaced, the harm of these actions of ignoring myself could, in fact, have me not well by the time I retired. So I figured out a way I could leave that job and start my own work of helping others, whether you are an artist or an actor, a musician, a writer, a dancer, or just a woman like me who is looking at a fork in the road and can choose between staying on the path that everyone else thinks you should be going down, or looking at that path of desire and longing to be connected to self. And I chose that path. I chose the path of helping others find the path that they have been seeking all of their life, of coming home to themselves and their core essence and moving that way. I realized in my reflections that there are some things that we need to ask ourselves before we shift. And this is why I'm not leaving this space that I had this interaction in yesterday until after I've spent some serious time considering 3 questions. Am I running from something? Am I just trying to escape? I think this is the question that I am deep in right now. Because I'm not sure am I moving towards something yet? That's the second question. So if you can come up with a serious yes or no to the answer of the first question, am I running from something? If the answer is no, you know that, then move on to the second question. Am I moving toward something? Now, if you are running away from something, the answer is yes, then you need to stop. You need to find help in figuring out what that from is. Chances are it's something that you haven't processed or you're not sure about, or there's something there and you don't know what it is. I think about the somewhere between 3 and 10-year-old who doesn't want to sleep in their bed anymore because they believe that there are monsters under the bed. So they are running every night to their mom and dad's room or whoever their caretaker is because they are running from the monsters under the bed. If you are running from something, what are the monsters under your bed? Chances are you're going to need help with that. It may be a therapist, it may just be a coach, someone like myself, or it may be something else. But if you can say, no, I am not running from something, then the next question you must look at is, am I moving towards something? Why is this longing to move or shift or change happening? So what are you moving toward? And perhaps there's a very clear answer. And the third question is, have I done what I reasonably can to improve the situation? This last one becomes very important in understanding why. It's the yin and the yang. So we all have yin and yang. Some people refer to the yin as the feminine side, and some people refer to the yang as the masculine side. And in my opinion, it is just yin and yang. It is flow, is the yin. The yang is the structure to help us put the yin in order. There is balance in that. So that last question, have I done what I reasonably can to improve the situation, is so important in ensuring balance and thoughtfulness. So those are the three questions that we must ask ourselves before we shut the door, close the book, move on. And then I have learned over time, big breath, sip of coffee. I have learned over time that there are 5 steps to leaving well. This is the part that prevents you from burning bridges. Decide from clarity, not frustration. So that is where I am. I was very frustrated and hurt and emotional and angry yesterday. So I will not make the decision based in that emotion. I need to sit and find the clarity in why I got emotional. Why is this important to me? And I do have some answers to that. And how I arrived at those answers was by pausing, reflecting, journaling. If you pray, pray. If you speak to the universe, the divine universe, speak to the divine universe. Seek wise counsel. Now, this, for me, I did do an element of that yesterday. I did share with 2 people that needed to know what had happened. Not because I wanted them to change it, but I wanted them to know what happened. So I'm still in the pausing, the reflecting, the journaling, the sitting with the divine spirit on this in meditation, sitting in the quiet, the solitude. And I will be here so that I can make a decision from my highest self, my best self. When I was a senior in high school, I gave a speech at graduation. It was called "Today is the first day of the rest of your life." The first day for us to step out and become the best version of ourselves that we know how to be. I think that applies to this as well. Step 2, if you've made the decision that it is time to shift, it is to honor what was good. This is where many people struggle. This is where bridges get burnt. It is important to remember that even difficult experiences with people, with places, with jobs, with things usually contain, if you take a moment to reflect, to journal, they usually contain lessons. Lessons for ourselves, lessons for the group. They also have friendships. That job I left, I had a great friend whom I'm realizing right now I need to reach out to because he extended an offer for my husband and him and he and his wife to get together, and I have not done anything. So when we are done today, I will be doing that. Friendships are so key. I have friendships from most of the jobs that I've had over the course of my life that there were great, impactful people in that community. Also, how have you grown? How have you grown by being involved with those people, that job, that community? And what opportunities did you get that you would not have ever had had you been a part of that community? And honor those. Honor those. And in fact, say thank you. Thank you to God, the divine spirit. Say thank you to the people. That's step 2. The third one is to communicate with grace. This one I had a hard time with yesterday, I have to tell you. When this person tried to apologize to me, and I said, it certainly felt like you were serious. I could have called him all sorts of names. I will tell you, I could not look at him. I was so hurt. But at some point in time, I probably have to figure out a way to say something along the lines of, I am deeply grateful for what our connection has given me. And perhaps our connection has helped me realize that it may be time for a change. And I wanted you to hear that directly from me. For you, if you've made a decision to change and shift, it could sound something like, I am deeply grateful for this chapter in my life. I have come to realize that it is time for me to step into a new chapter or season. And I wanted you to hear this directly from me. One of my core values is lifting others up and being in service. And this is step 1 of that, I think. Step 2 is the step 4 in this 5-step process. Leave things better than you found them. Document, transition, support, finish strong. So to remind you of the steps I've given already of the 5 steps. Step 1 is to decide from clarity, not frustration. Take time to pause, reflect, journal, pray, seek wise counsel, and make the decision from your higher self, not your emotional lower self. Honor what was good, lessons, friendships, growth, opportunity. Communicate with grace. I am deeply grateful for what this chapter has given me. I've realized it is time for me to step into a new season, and I wanted you to hear this directly from me. And then leave them better than you found them. If you make the decision to move on, and you have had a role that requires you to pass things on, leave it better than you found them. Document, transition, support, finish strong. The final weeks of your relationship with any job, career, or person is your legacy. That is what they will remember. And step 5 is to stay connected to the people, not the politics. One difficult leader, one unhealthy board member, one challenging coworker, one challenging interaction with one member of the community. None of those should determine whether you maintain meaningful relationships with the people who matter in your life. So to repeat, there are 3 questions to ask yourself before you make a decision. Am I running from something? What? What am I running from? If you are not running from anything, then what are you moving toward? And then have you done everything you reasonably can to improve the situation, to balance out the yin and the yang? And the 5 steps to leave well: decide from clarity, not emotion or frustration. You can do that by pausing, reflecting, journaling, praying, seeking wise counsel. Honor what was good. The lessons, the friendships, the growth, the opportunities. Communicate with grace and gratitude. Leave things better than you found them, and stay connected to the important people, not the politics. You know, having grown up in and around theater people and places where one auditions and there is quite a bit of rejection before you achieve. When you find yourself in a situation like I did yesterday, or maybe at the crossroads of a job or something else in your life, know that leaving is not an act of rejection. In fact, it is an act of self-compassion and loving kindness. It can be an act of completion. While a chapter or season can be very meaningful, it can still finish and end. You can be grateful for what was and honest about what it was. You have within you the ability to leave with dignity, to bless the journey that you've just moved away from, and bless the journey that you're moving toward. It is my belief that you can trust the ending of one chapter as a way to create space for the next one to begin. I'm going to repeat that. You can trust the ending of one chapter, job, relationship, career, community, and it is creating space for the next one to begin. As we begin to close today, I will post in the show notes some of what I've shared today. I can't share it all, but I want to leave you with a question. And as I do, before I do, I want to share with you that I am leaving in the show notes a link to my journal for healing and hope. Because I know that when you make a decision to move on to something new and you leave something behind, there is an element of grief that creeps in, an element of self-doubt and wondering whether you made the right decision. That is grief. Grief is the other side of joy and happiness. And you have to have both in your life. It's how you come to terms with them. So, the journal for healing and hope that I've included, I shared as a part of a summit I did on grief. And I believe that it is a great tool to do that pause, reflect, and journal process of step one, where you are deciding from clarity, not emotion or frustration. But if you choose not to download that journal, I want to leave you with this question. Where in your life may you be holding on to a chapter that has taught you what it came to teach? And it is time to move on. So, where in your life might you be holding on to a chapter that has already taught you what it came to teach? And it is time to move on. I hope you have a fabulous day. I will go back and post last week's podcast. I was traveling and for some reason it didn't load. So I will go back and post last week's. I think I had the same outfit on. So sorry. I do have more than one outfit. And please check the show notes if you are interested in that journal for healing and hope. Until next week, have a great day.